What is my favourite game that was based on a film? I think there is one very correct answer to this, and I think it is incredibly hard to argue with. One of my favourite games of all time. Some of the best memories I've got with gaming are this game. We'll go through those in a second because there's another question that relates to this one pretty heavily. It was released on the PlayStation 2, pretty sure it was released on the GameCube, but if you want to play its best version, it was also released on the Xbox 360. I'm hoping some of you are guessing what this game is. It has an incredibly long title. Incredibly long. I think it might be one of the longest. Two guesses before I show you what it was. It has to be Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. This was such a brilliant game. Granted, when I play it these days, I don't play the PlayStation 2 version, but I've said before that I have a habit of attributing things that were going on in life to memories with games and things like that. About 3 different times I've done that with the original King Kong, or the only King Kong game. We'll go through those shortly, but first, if you guys haven't already, do drop me a subscribe, because apparently, according to my analytics, many of you haven't, so if we could fix that, that'd be cool. I want my silver play button back here somewhere at some point, like maybe this spot right here could suit it, you never know, we'll get there one day. But these days, if I'm playing the King Kong game, I'm likely playing this version of it for the Xbox 360. I got it for £8. I think I last saw it at about 15. To be fair, I actually have 2 versions of it because one of mine stopped working at one point. I'm not entirely sure why, so I replaced it and got another. Sometimes when I see them out in the wild on my travels to various different CXs, I'm almost tempted to get another just to future-proof myself, because this is one of the Xbox 360 games that isn't entirely backwards compatible. It's more backwards compatible than some of the Spider-Man games are. So you can play this on a Series X, for example. You can, but you can't buy it on Series X. It's not one of the 360 games that's on the marketplace. You have to have the disc and put the physical disc into your Series X for it to work. So, yeah, if you've never played this game, it's such a wonderful game. I think it's only been about a year or 2 since I last played it, but I do genuinely have an itch to play it again sometime soon. In the game, you switch between the perspectives of Jack Driscoll, the human main character in a first-person shooter. A lot of games in recent years have been given mad props, I suppose, for being very minimalist when it comes to their HUD. This game has no HUD. There's no health bar. It doesn't tell you how much ammo you've got left. It's all in-game cues. You can press the reload button and Jack will give you a verbal tell as to how much ammo you've got left. Your health is obvious based upon how Jack is walking and the noises he's making. It's such an immersive game. It was scary when I was a kid because of the dinosaurs. They will two-shot you. Pretty much everything will two-shot you because you are a human on an island full of monsters. But then every few missions or so in the game, you'll switch to playing as King Kong, where you get a chance to absolutely batter said monsters that have been plaguing you the entire game. And I have attached so many core memories of this game through my life to me. I remember, I think I was in year 5 and I was sat in a classroom thinking, I can't wait to play King Kong when I get home. There was a period of time where one of my nieces, when they actually went to school, most of them didn't, she would come round to my house. Bear in mind, my eldest niece is only about 3 years younger than me, so we're pretty close in age. We were both in the same school together for a while. So she would come over to my house and then we would walk to school together and we would play this because we liked fighting the monsters and the dinosaurs. It was great fun. And then as a late teenager, I had a friend round and we sat and played all the way through it in one evening, switching controllers whenever one of us would die or whenever we'd finish a mission. And we'd crack jokes about the parkouring as King Kong, Ezio Auditore de King Kong. It was good times. I love that game. That leads us into what's my favourite gaming memory. That is a really hard one because a lot of my positive memories in my life have been... a lot of the positive memories from my childhood come from 2 places. It's either gaming or my nan. That is about it. And often the 2 are tied. But some gaming memories that stick out in my head when I think, oh, that was a good time, I wish I could relive it. When I first got access to online multiplayer during Call of Duty World at War, because that was my first online Call of Duty, and then the absolute sweat fest that was Modern Warfare 2, because I feel like a lot of people had the same route into Call of Duty, where the first one, while fun, was not necessarily the one they were very good at. The second one, though, where they had it from the first, from release date rather than, say, Christmas, was the one that they truly sweated. And I remember I had a solid 5-year window where between Modern Warfare 2 up to about Advanced Warfare, I would always attempt to be 10th prestige before Christmas, assuming the game came out in like early November. And just that sort of block of like Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, that block there is some of the best years of my life in gaming. When sometimes, right, I get depressing in some of my videos sometimes when I start reminiscing about my childhood because of the sort of upbringing I did have when it comes to what my dad was like. And I'm like, I shouldn't enjoy those years because those were the years that my dad was around and in not being a nice man. But I did enjoy the time that I had playing those games, you know? I think a lot of people my age, I'm 26 by the way, would love to go back to 2009, 2010, 11 and 12 and relive those years of just nothing mattering except getting on Call of Duty with your mates and just sweating it all night every night. I remember we'd have like 7-hour Skype calls playing Mob of the Dead on Black Ops 2 and things like that. They were the good days. When it comes to single player stuff, there's the first time that I went through the stories of a lot of the Dragon Ball games, and it was my first exposure to the Dragon Ball story because I'd never seen the anime. That was something I'll never forget. Sort of single player, but not really because it was co-op. Resident Evil 5 was the first time I played a game online with anyone ever. I played it through with a guy called Mackie D. I have no idea what his real name was. We played through it a few times together. It's been 16 years nearly since then next year. He's probably married with kids because a lot of people my age are. I just refuse to have kids. I don't know whatever happened to him, but I hope he's doing well. A more recent one, kind of, I suppose it has been about 6-7 years now, is my first experience with Ark Survival Evolved. I love Ark so much, and I do Ark in the same way that I do Minecraft, where I'll have phases where I'll play it and only play it for like a month, and then I will not play it for a couple of years and then start all over again. I'm not a PvP guy, I'm a PvE guy, and I love dinosaurs, I love the survival aspect. The first time I saw those dinosaurs, it was like reliving that moment from... It was like, you know how when you're a kid, the graphics of whatever you're playing seemed better than they actually were at the time? That was like going from King Kong and the dinosaurs in that game to the dinosaurs in Ark was mind-blowing. You know, the first time I ever played Ark was brilliant. I'll never forget that. And then even more recently was my first like real VR experience with a proper full game was Resident Evil 4 VR. That is some of the most fun I've had in gaming in years. I love Resident Evil 4. I love VR. Combine the two and oh my lord, I had so much fun. That was brilliant. There's a lot of happy moments through my life through gaming, which is nice. Okay, top 3 franchises that are not Dark Souls. Alright, let me think about this. So obviously, first of all, I've got to say Borderlands because I've probably played through Borderlands, the franchise, more than I have anything else ever. It's very dear to me. I struggle to compare games because of the fact that you play games for different reasons. Like, if I'm going to play Ark, I'm playing Ark for a very different reason than I would be playing, like, Devil May Cry or Resident Evil, you know? So, like, there's tons of franchises that I love, and it's why I don't, like... When I talk about games, I don't often rate them versus other games because it's hard to make that comparison. Like, a lot of people are always like, Ghost of Tsushima versus God of War, or back when they both came out, Elden Ring versus God of War, and it doesn't have to be that way. They both exist and fill a different niche, and we should be happy that we have both, and I'm always happy that we have both. But, like, if I had to say, like, my favourite franchises, Devil May Cry is probably up there. I do love Devil May Cry. I do love Resident Evil. I'm just thinking, I'm, like, looking at things. The original God of War saga, so 1 to 3, maybe Ascension, and maybe the PSP games, but definitely 1 to 3. Love those games. Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4, they're some of my favourite games ever as well. These sorts of questions just make me think about how many good games there actually are and make me glad that we have so many good games. And it's why I never get bored of gaming, really, because there's always something good I can go and play that is different to the last good thing that I played. And that's how I tend to play games, is I try and cycle between different stuff so that I don't burn out. Another franchise that I love is Neo, just Neo 1 and 2, although Neo 2 kind of replaced 1 completely. Back when they came out, especially 2, I put in an ungodly amount of time into that. Love them. So I don't think I answered this question very well because dude asked for top 3 franchises, but I stated quite a few franchises that I do love there. Like, that might have been like a top 5 franchises, I don't know, and in no particular order either, because I love a lot of things. There's not many games I don't like, to be honest. There really isn't. There are segments of games that I don't like, and that's something that confuses TikTok. TikTok will get very confused. If you say you don't like a segment or an aspect of a game, they will act like you said the whole game is awful when you didn't. For example, even in games that I truly love, I can find bad things in. And typically that's how people do things, is the more they love something, the more they will pick at it and find and make a bigger deal out of the smaller parts because everything else was so good that you don't even talk about it. People often very rarely do people actually talk about the things that they enjoy versus the things that they don't. It's the TripAdvisor effect. Most reviews on TripAdvisor are probably going to be negative because usually if somebody had a good experience with something, they go, huh, that was good, and they keep it to themselves and move on to the next experience. Whereas if something is bad and they didn't like it, they're more likely to shout on the rooftops about it, you know? Okay, and finally, you're on the tripod now, and anyone that's familiar with these knows that that means we're in for a fitness question. When we do these Q&As and I just talk about various things, I say that I'll save the fitness stuff for the end so that the people that are only bothered about the gaming can just sort of check out if they want to. But what was the question? I do believe it was something about satiating foods, right? Let me just double check. What foods do you advise to eat which are filling on a calorie deficit? First of all, I just want to touch upon mindset when it comes to dieting. You don't want to say that you are on a calorie deficit. This sounds nitpicky, but trust me, your mindset is everything when it comes to your success in fitness. When somebody says to me that they are on a calorie deficit, to me that sounds the same in terms of connotation as to the same way that somebody might say they are on Slimming World or on keto. You're not on a calorie deficit, right? Because calorie deficit isn't a gimmick or a method. Calorie deficit is the mechanism by which we lose weight. So the accurate thing to say there is you are in a calorie deficit. You could be on Slimming World and that puts you in a calorie deficit. Do you get what I mean there? And I think that sometimes people use on and in synonymously, and that could be fair enough, but often I have seen, again, because of being in fitness world as a job for so long, people will say on a calorie deficit and get confused as to what they really mean by that, and then when they don't see the results that they want, think that calorie deficit doesn't work, when it does. It's a state of being. It's just you weren't in one, you know, and it just, if you nip that in the bud straight away, it helps your mindset long term. It's just one of them. Anyway, in a calorie deficit and struggling to stay full. So when it comes to being full, the first thing you want to look at is your protein intake. Protein as a macronutrient, right? You've got 3 macronutrients as far as it matters. You've also got alcohol, but we'll ignore that for now. Carbs, fats, protein, right? Each one takes a different amount of time for your body to digest, and therefore the ones that digest slower, you stay fuller for longer. So protein, for example, is the longest lasting micronutrient in the body in terms of how long it takes you to digest it. It also means that your body uses up more energy to digest it, energy being calories. So there's something called the thermic effect of food, right? Everything that we put into our body has to be digested. So even though we're eating calories, we are using calories to utilize those calories to some extent. So there's a net calorie loss in there somewhere. And protein has got the highest net calorie loss. I don't remember, it's been a very long time since I saw this, but I think it's something about 20% of the calories that we consume from protein are consumed just to digest said protein. So if we ate 100 calories worth of protein, only 80 of those actually count because 20 of them were used to digest the 100 grams of the 100 calories of protein. Does that make sense? Whereas it would be a smaller amount for the other 2 macronutrients because they're easier to digest, carbs and fats. So first thing you want to make sure is that you're getting enough protein in. So for example, I've been dieting for the last few weeks, and to be real with you, I have been slacking on my protein because my method when I diet is for the first few weeks I go hard and I go really, really hard. Like to the point where when I tell people what I eat, they're like, "You're absurd." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I can, but you shouldn't do this because you wouldn't know." So my protein's been lower than it should have been for the last couple of weeks, and as a result, I've been hungrier. Now that the aggressive phase of my diet has slowed down and I'm going to steady it out a little bit, my protein will go back up a bit. And I found that now that I've reintroduced my protein shakes and stuff like that, I'm fuller and it doesn't feel like I'm dieting anymore, even though my calories are still a third of what they were 2 months ago. So yeah, there's no point asking me, by the way, how many calories I eat because it's not helpful to you because everybody's is individual. But step number 1 on staying fuller throughout the day is making sure that you're getting regular protein feedings in. So typically when dieting or whatever, you want to aim for at least a gram per pound of body weight of protein. So say you weigh 180 pounds, you might want 180 grams of protein. It sounds like a lot, but realistically it isn't. Or for example, if you're somebody that is on the heavier side and you're trying to lose some fat, it might make sense to eat a gram per pound of body weight that you want to be. So for example, if you currently weigh 180 pounds and you're trying to weigh 160 pounds, 160 grams of protein, if that helps. Because realistically, the protein is there to support the lean muscle tissue and stuff like that. And fat tissue is not lean, and therefore it doesn't require as much protein and it would be a little bit excessive. But to some people, eating excessive protein is another way of staying fuller, because again, that protein makes you stay fuller for longer. Next up, choose foods that potentially take you longer to eat just inherently. Again, this is back to that other example that I said the other day about how you could theoretically diet on exclusively McDonald's. It just wouldn't be advisable because the amount of food that you would get to eat wouldn't be very much in terms of like food volume. You could eat like a burger for 250 calories, or you could make your own burgers and have 2 of them at home for the same amount of calories. You want to find all the little tricks you can in terms of making your food go further, but still tricking your brain into thinking you've eaten more. And this works on the flip side too. More often than not, I need to tell people this on the flip side. So there'll be lads that are bulking and struggling to hit their calories, and they're still eating chicken breast and like 3% fat mince when they have the space within their calories to eat the 10% fat mince or the chicken thigh that is inherently higher calorie. People are very quick to make the swaps for lower calorie things when they're trying to diet, but very slow to make the swaps back up when they're trying to gain weight, even though it's the same amount of food being put in your mouth, but just different amounts of calories within said food. So if you haven't already, do look at making those swaps so that you can eat more food. Look at your lower calorie snacks. Sometimes, and this is an interesting one, you don't want the lower calorie version of things because you end up overeating the lower calorie versions. Whereas if you'd have just eaten the thing that you actually wanted to eat in the first place, it would have satiated that little itch in your head and scratched it and it goes away, versus trying to scratch it with things that are just not as good. So for example, you might want a 200 calorie chocolate bar, and instead of having that 200 calorie chocolate bar, you keep eating like, I don't know, 80 calorie cereal bars. But you end up eating you end up eating like 4 80 calorie cereal bars and eating more calories than the chocolate bar would have been. And now you're at a net loss and it would defeat the point anyway. Maybe in that situation, you might have just been better off having the chocolate bar, making it fit your calories, scratching the itch that you wanted to have that chocolate bar, and now you're less hungry perhaps. It depends upon the reason whether or not you're hungry. Sometimes you're hungry because you're genuinely hungry because you are dieting, and that is to be expected, by the way. Any person that tells you you shouldn't be hungry while you're dieting ever is, again, trying to baby you. And this is something that I am always about when it comes to dieting and fitness, is that I'm very non-emotional about it and very objective. When you are dieting, you are actively not consuming the energy your body needs to stay its current weight. You're going to be a bit hungry sometimes, and you just have to be the adult in the room and tell yourself, no, I'm better than this. I will not succumb to these cravings where possible. Because a lot of the time people will emotionally eat. They're not actually hungry. This is something I do a lot, is I'll mentally check myself when I'm dieting. If I've just eaten, like recently, and I feel that I'm hungry, I will have a word with myself and be like, you can't be hungry, you have just eaten. This is a brain thing, not a stomach thing. And I will overpower my brain. You know what I mean? So that's another way. In terms of specifically what foods to eat, it's a difficult one to advise because of the fact that it's all dependent on your preferences. I could tell you that brown bread will keep you fuller than white bread, but if you despise brown bread like I do, that's not helpful information, is it? So it's difficult to advise specific foods, but you're going to want to look at the lower calorie alternative to things so that you can potentially eat more. This is why it's so nuanced, because back to that like cereal bar versus chocolate bar equation, some people would be better off having the 4 cereal bars because at least then they got to eat more frequently throughout the day, and it made them feel in their head like they're not dieting. This is why sometimes dieting is that mind game of just trying to beat your own brain and figure out what works best for you. And it is just a case of figuring out what works best for you. But 9 times out of 10, I'd say the reason people struggle is the protein thing. A lot of people, especially when they're new to this, and typically people asking questions like this are fairly new to this, is the struggle hitting their protein. So yeah, hopefully this helped. And I didn't ramble for 25 minutes like I did yesterday, so I was quicker at it this time. Hopefully this was helpful. And again, there'll be a link in my bio, no, not in my bio, in the description of the video to any fat loss guides, weight bulking guides, gym guides, just about everything you could ever need. Code, I've not put a code on them in a while. Maybe I'll stick a code on them. Code YouTube for 25% off. I'll do that now so I don't forget. You guys can watch me do it, because otherwise I will forget. Because you guys are not seeing this video for like 48 hours from now, because I've made so many videos today. I'm on a roll. I've not actually put a discount code on stuff in a long time. When I was only doing fitness content, I would put discount codes on stuff all the time because it's good marketing. People are way more likely to buy stuff if they think that things are scarce. It's a scarcity effect. It's why everything you've ever seen ever is discounted, or like $9.99, because it's just psychology. So discount code YouTube, I'm sure you guys can spell that one, and it gets you a fixed 25% off your basket. So cool. Discount saved, done. So that's active right now, but nobody will know about it for 2 days. So if you want to get yourself some stuff, you can. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe. I'll see you in a bit.